Welcome to another episode of The Last Click. I'm Chris Parsons, your host, and I'm really looking forward to today's guest Josh. Josh is from Trail Appliances, and he's been a colleague and in my network for a number of years now. And really pumped to have his opinion on how we look at retail, the tech side of things, how we work towards better conversion and usability for our customers. Josh, I'm going to ask you to do an intro, please.
First of all, Chris, appreciate the opportunity to jump on the podcast. My name, Josh Johnston. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Digital Strategy at Trail Appliances. A little bit about me and my background. A few people know this, but back in the day, the plan was to be a history professor. Realized quite quickly history is a hobby, not necessarily a career. And started in the e-com side, literally packing boxes, helping out with fulfillment at London Drugs. Since then, worked on the retail side with retailers like London Drugs, Best Buy Canada, the Dufresne Group, some D2C providers as well, Mustang Survival and Article Furniture probably being the biggest names there. And now I've been at Trail for almost 4.5 years, and it's been great.
Amazing. I actually was just speaking with someone I know you're familiar with, Kevin Sorby, over at London Drugs. He and I were having a conversation today just about the growth of the industry as well, and just catching up. We used to work together at Walmart, and Kevin's just such a great operator.
Kevin's a fantastic operator and an even better human being. Awesome guy to work with.
Absolutely is a great person. You just know he's a true gentleman. Josh, let's get into some questions now. What I'm looking for with you is a little bit different than the other audience members of guests that we've had on the show. Really dived into marketing, but you're such a strong person on the tech and build side of an organization. So when we look at the evolution from an omnichannel perspective, what does a roadmap for you look like to make sure that you have a good blend of digital tactics and the shopping online, but having that seamless shopping experience to the store level?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Chris. Sorry to cut you off there a little bit. So I think it's always important whenever you join an organization to get a lay of the land of the business and then look at the digital channel overall. And then there's so many different ways you can do this, but I tend to look at it as like 4 major growth levers. And there's kind of a fifth if it's operational efficiency, but we'll leave that aside. But really, it's like, okay, where do we stand in terms of CRO and conversion rate optimization? 2, where do we stand in terms of the market and how much market growth opportunities are there? And that market growth could come from expanding the product catalog, or it could come from improving or spending more money on the digital marketing side or marketing in general. 3, we'll also look at, okay, markets in terms of physical demand. So is there an opportunity to expand our delivery radius, which is one that's near and dear to us over at Trail Appliances, given that we operate within a radius around our physical store locations. But another example of that would be literally opening physical stores, which my former employer Article, they just started to open up stores across North America after being a pure D2C only player, because that was another way to grow brand awareness and reach more customers that way. 4th kind of escapes me at the moment. I'll have to go back to it. But really at the end of the day, you just want to get your blueprint there and kind of grade the organization where they rank in those areas. And then from there, you can start to look at your tech stack and go, okay, based on where we are and what we need to do I have enough horsepower here? Sometimes it's like, yeah, worked in businesses where you have Shopify, you just have to build it out a little bit more. Maybe you need to bring in more merchandising support or buy a tool there. Other situations, it's like, no, we got to do a full build, particularly if you want to get into some really advanced offerings that connect what's going on at store level with your website or from your website to store level. If you're walking into an organization where those 2 systems and data sets are disconnected from one another, you're going to want to likely propose a project to connect those 2 in some capacity. And that's what you're spending the first part of your time in the role doing, is justifying and getting that project up and running. I think that the key is setting expectations when you're going through that process, making sure that it's clear how you're going to measure success and how you've come to your conclusions thus far. making sure it's data based. And then really from there, I think it's just really important that you keep your feedback loops tight with the rest of the organization. So there's a lot to this topic, but I would say that's one that I've seen folks struggle with in the past, and that is building in isolation. Like, always want to make sure
Yeah.
you're getting that feedback from the frontline teams. You want to make sure you're getting feedback from the teams that are in the engine room in your organization as well, so that you're going to be able to produce the best product for your customers. And then oftentimes, if you're building an omni-channel solution, also for the staff, because the staff are going to be using the tool.
Yeah, the staff at store level definitely dives into the website and makes sure that they're staying up on product knowledge and being able to respond to customers with any type of question that they might have. I think you've just went through two major builds almost in parallel. However, you did launch your ERP first and then the website recently. But when I say launch, ERPs are an ongoing, and so is e-commerce, an ongoing process. So you've have different phases happening for both. How do you think about when you're doing those? Because a lot of times a retailer will rush because they need to have that front-facing e-commerce platform, but then because of the legacy ERP, they end up having to rebuild the website later on anyways. So how do you think about the process of balancing the front-facing customer need of a website, but also making sure the infrastructure is modernized as well?
Yeah, these are questions you're going to want to ask if you're going into a customer facing front end build before you start to put shovels in the soil, so to speak. So, as part of that initial RFP process, if you're doing that or just, discussing what you're looking for with vendors, you're going to want to understand, okay, what are your out of the box ERP connectors? Does that, if there is nothing, what middleware options are available? And at least get a lay of the land of what that's going to look like. Get references, talk to others that have gone through this. And even if you're not going to be that suite, if it's Microsoft Dynamics or whatever, you want to be able to frame up what that's going to look like. And you want to make it clear to the devs on the web side of the project what type of data and data plumbing is going to be required eventually to get that data into the ERP, and then vice versa. You can't do it all. Like, there's going to be work that will have to wait until,
Yeah.
you want to set yourself up with flexibility. If you don't, that's where you're looking at a potential major facelift. And those situations are tough because you're going to be dealing with finance teams at that point going, well, we just dumped a bunch of money on the website and we've got Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, whoever telling us that they've got a commerce product, which we know can be a bit suspect, and they'll be pushing for that because it's going to be significantly more cost effective.
Yeah, great point. It's always that balance. You can go with like the saying that we use sometimes is one throat to choke and have everything tied together, which is great. It gets you to launch, you save a few dollars. But then sometimes when there's flexibility of adding on or plugging in new technology, it becomes actually much harder because they're not keeping up their roadmap the same as someone that has a pure play e-commerce software solution.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky that we're in the composable era now, where particularly on the web side, you have very robust APIs. I can tell you that the same's not true in the ERP space, or at least
Right.
they're getting better, but not quite as well versed there. But there's ways around that with good data architecture and leveraging more modern database that you can pull data out of the ERP for, and not to people with all that stuff, but you just don't want to find yourself in a box. That's the key. And if you're not sure, those are the moments to leverage your network. I've benefited so much in my career of just like, hey, I don't know. And I'm ran into this person at this conference, or I had a beer with this person downtown. Maybe they know, and oftentimes they don't. So then there's somebody in their network. And then before you know it, you do find that person that you the insight you're looking for. And then you can start to ensure that you're going into these conversations with developers and vendors and whatnot, and get the answer you need, and just make sure that you've got that level of security that, like, when the time is right and that integration needs to happen, everyone in the organization's eyes wide open about what that's going to look like, timeline, cost, set up for success.
Yeah, I love the point about the leveraging your network. Great example for me is Tanbeer Grove, who was at Rona and Lowe's while I was at Ren's for pets. And then we swapped. I went to Home Hardware and he went to Pet Value. And we often joke that we're frenemies. We're really great friends in the industry, but we're very competitive. And the nice thing though with having a network like that, he could reach out to me about learnings I had in the pet industry when he went there, and I could leverage him for learnings on the home industry when I went to home. So it's nice to be able to have those people in the industry that you can network with, trust, respect, and it just elevates your game as well because you're able to get to some answers faster than people that are not well connected.
Yeah, Tanbeer is amazing. We actually reached out to him before we started our composable commerce replatforming initiative, given that Pet Value, I believe they had just gone through that and
Mhm.
come out the other side. So Tanbeer was able to share a couple of critical areas to, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that, which allowed us to, from day one when we kicked our project off, understand where some of those pain points might be and just get out in front of them. So great example of just pays itself back in spades.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to touch on a little bit of marketing here with how do you balance brand being authentic with your brand and also the pressures to continuously innovate, and it might steer a little bit off from and promise, and that's a hard conversation internally to have with the C-suite is like, hey, here's what we stand for. If we do all of this new technology, we got to make sure we're staying focused on this brand or change the brand message a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and this is gonna, there's so many different ways you can define that. But one way I tend to think about a brand, it's like it's the positioning you have in market and your discipline to stick to that and execute flawlessly against that. I think back to time at London Drugs, and we actually went through a branding exercise, and we really struggled with it because we were just like, it's what we do every day. It's
Yeah.
I don't know, like we don't need some shiny thing on the wall. It's just it's the right thing to do, and this is how we look after our customers and each other. The challenge with innovation is that you're introducing a bunch of new stuff that makes, being disciplined to the brand values very challenging. So the key is as you're going through that, it's really change management. It's ensuring that the team have the right SOPs if you're trying to get them to do new things. It's what's your fallback option at store level if you're introducing, I don't know, like in-store pickup and something goes wrong.
Mhm.
Do the staff know what they're empowered to do in those moments? Have you taught that out or worked with retail operations to go through that? On the website, like what we did last year, we introduced a live chat or pardon me, an AI chat agent on the site. And obviously, how do you do that in a way that doesn't conflict with product expertise, which is a core value for us at Trail? And the way we did that is we worked with the sales team to understand, okay, there's some questions we're okay with the AI answering. There's other questions where no, it needs to go to a human being, and that's where the team steps in. So you always have to kind of go back to what is our North Star, right? Who are we? How do we disciplined against that? And if we're going to be introducing innovation, which we should be doing, how do we do that in a way where we're setting up the rest of the organization for success so we don't have lapses?
Great points. And that brings me to so as you continue to innovate, how do you maintain consistency through that customer experience across the different channels? Obviously, it's not that you didn't have a website, but you've now enhanced a web experience and creating a much richer digital experience for the consumers driving traffic to store, often there's a disconnect from what they've just experienced online to the store level or vice versa. They have great sales reps at the store level or staff at the store level, highly educated, and then some sites have a gap when it comes to digital. How do you ensure that there's consistency for consumers?
Yeah, and I'd say it's a in progress for us at Trail right now, but it's definitely something we're going to be tightening up, and ERP plays a role in that. But I would say overall, throughout all the organizations I've worked at, when we get it right, it's because our feedback loop with our customers and our staff is super tight. So there's a strong understanding of what the experience should be. There's strong feedback around how that should look, and that's being fed across department, and cross department leaders are working together in order to translate that into something that's operational in their sphere. So it's not necessarily a direct translation of what we're doing online in store, but it's in store executing within the parameters that of what that experience or the elevated experience would look like within that domain. So, because that's one thing I think earlier on in our space, Chris, like back in like 2012, 2013, there was kind of like it should all be the same across the board, like the web store and all that. And yes, philosophically, like this, the friction free and all that for sure. But in terms of what a great in-store experience looks like and what a great website experience, like I'd say a great store experience is one where there might actually be some friction points, but they're good friction points because you're experiencing the brand and the product and the staff.
Yeah.
Whereas on the website, there's times where it's like, no, the best web experience is you're just getting out of the way and ensuring the customer has a clear path to convert. There's differences, but in order to understand and to really, find value in those differences, it's those feedback loops.
Yeah, agreed. I was having a conversation earlier today as well with Tim, Mayer, who is from I Am Gadgets, who I've had the pleasure of working with in a number of different opportunities. And we went down the discussion of even with the different channels like an Amazon or a marketplace solution, how historically, again, you say that you want to have all these channels the same, but at the same time, you don't. Like an Amazon experience, you may not want to put your full catalog up onto that website. You may want to use it as a clearance channel for your brand, or you may want to use it for some unique assortment that test and learn and say, okay, we're not doing gaming for our organization, but let's try it out over here and see what the response is. And then is this a category that we can bring into to our offering as an example. So when you look at opportunities like that, is that how you kind of think of it too? Like some of these things become sandboxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Each channel has its own rules. You should understand those rules before you jump in. And you have to think as a brand. I think the classic example of this was likely, I think it was what Nike when they pulled their products out of Amazon, right?
Right.
And they went directly, which we can debate from a business perspective if that was, yeah, their share price right now might, along with other decisions they've made, may suggest that maybe wasn't the best, but it was one of those situations where it's like, in order to protect the brand equity, that maybe that channel didn't make the most sense for them. So, as a business, you have to sit and determine what you want to do. And yeah, I think the clearance example is a really good one, Chris. Like, I think, we have clearance centers that are distinct from our showrooms. You can find a couple clearance products in some of our showrooms, but having the distinct experience, I think,
Mhm.
allows us to merchandise and sell those products more effectively.
Yeah, agreed. When it comes to the technical side of the organization, and as we try to get stronger at personalization or customer profiling cohorts, data is critical. And we've been saying it in this industry for years, but even now more so with AI and how AI will be looking at the data. How are you leveraging first party data in ways maybe your competitors are not to drive conversion and also not just drive conversion, but really be relevant to a consumer more than just looking for that transaction?
Yeah, I think for us, we're still in our infancy
Mhm.
at Trail on this, but we've got the foundation with some of the technology investments we've made to really start to power this moving forward. An example of that is quite quickly here, we're going to be able to offer personalized motions to customers based on really specific browsing behavior. Example, like you come back to the site 2 days later and check a cart that you built before, will target you with a little more sophisticated than some of the engines you can kind of bolt on to Shopify, but similar in the approach. Where all this is going, though, I think, particularly with the LLMs, we're going to finally realize, I wouldn't say true personalization, but as close to it as we've really been able to get to. We in ecom, we've been promised personalization for a decade,
Yeah.
and I think it's fair to say it's always kind of fallen a bit flat, even with some of the more sophisticated models that are out there. I envision a world where via your first party data, via the data that the LLM has of the user, and via the markup and the like CMS data that's available to the LLM from your website, you're going to see more personalized interfaces constructed. Now,
Mhm.
we'll still control it as the retailer in terms of, oh, do this and that, but you can't do XYZ. But it will be, think of like all the different variations of landing pages a user could land on. and the type of content that could be displayed to that user based on what the LLM knows of you personally and what you're searching for. And then being able to pull all the different content, assets, pricing, and all that that's available from the ecom tech stack. So to me, that's as close to personalization as I think we've ever gotten once we get to that
Yeah.
point. And, for us, we got to make sure that our tech stack is agile enough, absolutely ensuring that not just our first party data, but like our CMS data and everything. It's built and open in a way, particularly like structured data, for the LLMs to do what they need to do once they have that capacity.
Yeah, personalization is a trigger word for me in the industry for so long, and personalization, as I talk at a lot of uh, a lot of meetings, is it's impossible for a retailer, an individual retailer, to offer true personalization because customers will shop with other retailers, and you miss all of those interactions and what that buying habits of same customer that shops at Trail is actually going to shop at Walmart or shop at, La Senza or all of these stores. And you miss all of those little micro moments. And then
Yeah.
because you missed that, you can't truly be personalized, or you go out and you tell somebody to buy a fridge that they happen to just buy somewhere else for some reason. And now you're personalizing a message about a fridge to them that they're like, well, thanks, I've purchased that already. I think to get to true personalization, these pipe dreams that I have are like, you're going to need a universal checkout that is on everyone's site. Like if Google built it and you can share that data between all purchases, or maybe it's a MasterCard or somebody like that, that allows for you to really see end to end of a customer journey. Or I don't know if you've seen what Napster's doing. Yes, the same Napster that we would use back in the day for our music. They've actually introduced a personal shopping agent that you, as the customer, will download, and it can sit on top of whatever website you're going to. So as you shop between different websites, that personalized agent is giving you recommendations because it knows your history. The individual retailer doesn't, but the agent does, that you've opted into with Napster. And I think that's a really cool concept that if a number of retailers get on board with it, it could be very useful for a customer.
I think this is where, for retailers and D2C brands, the flexibility of your tech stack is going to be super important because you're going to need to be able to play ball with these solutions as they start to hit the market
Yeah.
here. Most, pretty sure Shopify will be fine, but there are, brands and businesses that are on custom builds that are 10 years old or older platforms. I mean, we moved off of Magento site that we're on now. These are considerations and lost opportunities, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots from a platform standpoint, thanks to AI and, an AI moment of discovery to throw that in there.
Yes, thank you.
It's that's going to be a chasm quite quickly here if companies aren't careful. I think we went through this patch after COVID where everyone gangbusters spending on the ecom side, and then it pulled back. And now I would say in the last year, I'm
Mhm.
seeing more and more replatforming conversation come to the fore. And I think that's going to accelerate here as businesses realize, the shopping journey is changing and we're going to fall behind big time if we don't invest to catch up.
Yeah, I think that's true for whole retail infrastructure. So many systems, especially websites, rely on good item data, weights, dimensions, color swatches, all of that information. And if you don't have a good infrastructure, you end up making the mistake I've had to do a number of times, which is you end up building your product catalog on the web platform, which doesn't connect to your store platform. And then you're just figuring out for years how to get the two to talk to each other. So I think, it's critical if you can have a good foundation system first at your retail, it can feed to the website and make things much easier for you.
Yeah, and the ability to do that now has never been easier, I'd say, than it was before. We'll shout out one of the companies we work with, MerchKit, that makes that really easy for us, and also transforming that product data with AI, whereas before, you used to have to offshore
Yeah.
those type of tasks and to get it completed in a timely fashion. But you're absolutely right, like flexibility. It's the ease in which this data can be shared and transferred between devices, the ease in which you can quickly attach an API to something. You just can't have rigid systems as much as you used to.
Yeah, agreed. Josh, as we get closer to 30 minutes here, I want to take the opportunity to how, first of all, I've been following your career. We've now had the pleasure of working together for the last real 6 months or so in a more intimate way, and I appreciate your leadership, your thought process. Congratulations on the recent promotion as well. How do people get a hold of you?
First of all, I appreciate the kind words, Chris. For anyone that wants to chat shop or just grab a beer at any time, I'm always open. LinkedIn's the best place to reach me. You can always email me as well at jjohnston@trailappliances.com, but LinkedIn's usually the best from a networking perspective. Our office is out in Richmond, so anyone listening that's based in Vancouver, happy to go downtown.
Fantastic. I'll add that information to the description of the podcast and video for sure. Last question. What's the one piece of advice that you have for brands or even for colleagues and people in the network to create deeper customer connections?
I think it's two things. Stay humble. This is a roller coaster. Just when you think you've got it figured out, you will get humbled very quickly, whether you like it or not. So you might as well just be humble. And I think the other thing, it's have courage. There's going to be a lot of times where you'll be sitting on some data, particularly in cross-functional meetings, likely earlier on, and you may not want to take stands because it's incomplete data. And I bring up the data piece because I think for us on like the digital marketing, e-commerce, that side of the stack, we have more data available to us than others in the organization do. There's times where you're going to have to take a stand. Do it. You'll regret the times you didn't. I know I do. When I think back to certain moments in my career and times that I did push forward with something. Feels risky at the moment, but turned out to be.
Yeah, I think, and I've had this conversation a number of times where I tell people to bet on themselves, one, and two is don't let data or other people's negativity stop you from taking a risk. And we don't mean a risk that will cripple a company, but often from failure, you learn it's not like the project stops because you failed at that moment. You actually end up coming out with a better solution because you went through some hurt versus if you had an easy implementation and then you were like, okay, great, we checked that box. A lot of times it lacks that polish. So by going through some failures along the way, you end up coming out with a better solution a lot of times.
And so it's kind of like a learned skill that you pick up over time.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Josh, thank you so much for being on the last click. I'm sure we can continue this conversation for many more hours, but no one would listen to it. So thanks for spending 30 minutes with me. I think the best way to really engage is to embrace network. Like Josh and I have talked about a number of times today. Engage. Don't be afraid to reach out to each other. It's a very small network. You and I have known each other. You've always been out on the West. You have come from I'm in the West now, but from Ontario, and we've still connected through this very great small network of retailers. So I appreciate you today. Thank you so much. And hopefully this becomes our number one downloaded video.
Go for it.
See you, Josh. Awesome.